And the conversation continues. We're still keeping our eyes on the ball. The ball here being the governorship and the House of Assembly elections across the country. Of course, we do have hot spots as usual, but it seems like some hot spots are not really hot today because you see, we just spoke with our correspondent and she did mention that there's a low turnout. And one would wonder why everybody was so excited about the presidentials and the government or the governorship election, which affects us more directly. We're not showing up for it.
It's a pretty, how do I describe it? Unexpected surprise.
Okay. Well, we still have our guest in the studio, Mr. Shopitan, and of course, Barrister
Jide. Now, Barrister Jide, let's start with the two highlights from the conversation we had earlier on with Amaka. You listened through all of it. Out of 4 polling units, wards that she visited, 2 did not have card readers functioning, and she also said that, well, there was poor turnout as at just a few minutes past 9, almost 10 o'clock.
Yeah, you know, like I said, whose responsibility is it to make the card readers function? INEC, of course. And if you migrate it to the private sector business environment, when you are given a responsibility and you know it touches on the bottom line and the survival and growth of the organization, you are under obligation to do everything to deliver.
But do you think we understand time? Because it is expected that voting should close by 2 p.m. That's less than 4 hours to go.
Yeah, the more reason why you should make sure everything is available. Now, the big question is, as a state, have we made provisions for effectiveness? Yes. About 189 billion naira was released to INEC. So, giving an excuse that card reader is not working, it's not acceptable to me, for instance.
Well, INEC would say that these things, they would say that these things are electronics or mechanical. They will always, even your computer can freeze up and then you have to restart it. These are normal hiccups that you could have because your phone service is just you, but of course this service is almost everybody at that polling unit, which might amount to about 500.
But Mariam, we have to fault INEC here because the assurance we got from INEC was that at every single polling unit or almost across the different polling units, you would have a technical team waiting to ensure that they see to the smart card readers working well, or they have just an extra to rotate if there are issues there. And Amaka's report there said, well, they are waiting until one of the technical team arrives.
So the guideline, what INEC has done is to have technical support staff at the rack centers. Now, we have to remember that we're talking about technology, and even in the private sector that he was referring to, these things happen. Your POS terminals, I don't know how many times you've gone to a filling station or a supermarket and they'll tell you it's not working. So what the bank does is they've got technicians who they send around to fix those things. The challenge with this situation is it's a time-barred event.
Waited, right? One of the polling units in Surulere waited for close to 3 hours for a technical guy to come assist.
The guidelines are very clear. 1, you must use a card reader. 2, where the card reader fails, somebody will bring a backup from the local government center, the rack. That's 2. And 3, if that fails, then a technician is supposed to come to fix it. Now, they've also now made a 4th provision, which is in the event that these 2 redundancy plans fail, then they would have elections the following day. We've got to remember that we're talking about roughly 100 and almost 200,000 devices. So it's inevitable that you will have some failures here and there. What you don't want is for the percentage of failures to be so high as to be significantly, as to affect the outcome of the overall exercise significantly. So where you have this hitches, our expectation is to watch out to see how quickly those hitches are addressed. So the one that Amaka reported from her papa, what we should find out from her later is when did the INEC official arrive? Was it 2 hours later? Was it 3? How long did they keep the voters waiting? And, you know, in the event that they kept them waiting so long that voting could not continue, then did INEC make provision for them to now vote tomorrow? Because those have been provided for in the guidelines, and I don't think we should make too much out of it, except if it becomes significant in proportion.
Doesn't INEC flaw itself this time around in the discussion where smart card readers are supposed to be mandatory? You are waiting for a technical team to arrive at your polling unit for 2, 3, even an hour is a long while.
You know, I agree with him within the concept of the environment. This is Africa, but there are several levels of evaluation. We have the excellent, we have the medium, we have the mediocre, and of course, I think we should go for the best. This is a national engagement, and we should know the kind of equipment that we acquire.
These were used during the presidential
level of
election,
training,
so we know
given to those who will manage it, the back-up support, because electorates are coming out to vote. Let's assume that we do not have a public holiday today. I must go and engage my own business, and I need to come in and vote and go like they do in some other countries. What happens? So, and I think what we should be demanding in the management of Nigeria is that excellence. Then, if in the process of the excellence we have issues, it will be minor. If not, we will be excusing what we should not. And that is my own concern.
Would you be surprised
whether we like it or not,
smart card readers in this election?
What?
Would you be surprised that we don't use smart card readers in this election?
But it is been stated clearly that we must use the smart card. So, and this will cast doubt on the fairness, the freedom, or
this will not be
the process.
But this will not be the first time that smart card readers will not be used, because I mean, don't forget, Bielsa still has not produced the 30-something, smart card machines. You know, so the states that would have had a pool to take from when the ones they have are not working probably might not have, or might have lesser, because 36 has to be sent to Bielsa, and they are also supposed to have some plan B.
Now, let's go to administration. With the level of security presence in Bayelsa State, should we be claiming that some smart card readers disappeared and the law enforcement agents do not have the intelligence report to trace these items? Then why were they there, if not for political reasons?
Okay, Barrister,
these are
we'd like to
issues.
Hold your thoughts there. We have our correspondent coming to us now on standby over the telephone. Felicity Ezewike, she's speaking from Abuja. Good morning, Felicity.
From Ikeja, I beg your pardon.
Oh, Ikeja.
Hello, Felicity. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Tell us where you are, the polling unit you're at, and of course, what the situation is.
Okay, I'm currently at polling unit 047, Sunday at Digu Kefi Street in Alausa, Ikeja, Lagos. The polling unit of the national leader of the APC, Bola Tinubu. At the moment, there seems to be nobody here from INEC office. There seems to be an issue because I understand that across several polling units, no ad hoc staff has arrived in Ikeja. The security people are still here. Voters have come and most of them have gone back. A few are still seated waiting, hopefully that INEC will show up. The media that was here in their number earlier, most of them have dispersed. So we're still waiting and hoping that INEC will turn up and commence the process. It's already past 10 a.m. in the morning. This was something that was supposed to have commenced at 8 a.m.
Now, this situation repeats itself because I remember you covered the presidential election from that very spot in Alausa, and this is happening again. Has there been any calls made of you while surveying the area to just find out why there's no ad hoc staff there, why the materials aren't present, and nothing is happening at 10:30?
You know, it's slightly different from the presidential election because at this time, voting had already commenced. It's a bit later this time around than expected. Like I said earlier, we're getting information is filtering in that some INEC ad hoc staff are complaining about non-payment, although Although INEC officials have come out to say that is not true, maybe some of them have not received their payment. We cannot categorically say why INEC staff is not here today, but we're hopeful that they will turn up because the election must hold as it is holding across other states of the country.
And then what's the response, the mood of the voters who might have turned out there? I'm sure they're pretty much dampened, their spirits are dampened with this situation.
Yeah, some of them are quite unhappy. I've sent in some reaction from some of the voters who are here. Most of them have gone. They waited for a bit and they've gone. I'm sure maybe if they hear that the process has commenced, they will all return. But they're not happy. Some are seated and patiently waiting. At the moment, I can't really gauge their mood because there are just a few of them left from the ones that had come earlier.
But you earlier said security was theirs. Can you just repeat that? We have the police, isn't it, and military officials?
We just have about 2 police officers. I can't even see them at the moment, but there were 2 police officers here earlier and some NSCDC officials. Not more than 6 in total are here. But we do see officers passing by, maybe en route somewhere else, but not for this polling unit. Everything is actually quite calm. There doesn't seem to be just that air of expectation waiting for INEC to commence the process.
Okay, Felicity, we'll get back in touch with you as soon as we can get word that INEC officials have showed up to begin the process. Thank you for speaking with us.
Felicity, before you run along, quickly, do you have any idea when the national leader of the APC will likely be present at that polling unit?
Well, I'm sure he will have information as to when the INEC staff arrive. Earlier, I was told he might come around noon to cast his vote. But as it stands now, because the process has not commenced, no staff has arrived, no one can say for sure when he will be turning up to cast his vote.
Thank you very much, Felicity.
All right.
Thank you.
So that's Felicity Ezewike speaking to us from Ikeja in Lagos. Same thing happened, like you said, David. During the presidential election, they turned up pretty late, and for some reason it dampened, the morale of the people. And here we are again, and this is about to 11, and no INEC materials, no INEC officials, and INEC was continuously assuring us. They kept assuring us. How assuredly assured are we?
I kind of saw this coming, to be honest, because there's something I call the second run effect. So you are planning for an event that is supposed to be a periodic event or something you will repeat. What tends to happen to us as human beings, except you take a deliberate step to prevent that from happening, is you almost over-prepare for the first one. So we had elections scheduled for, I think it was February 16th originally, and then shifted to 23rd. So the shift to the 23rd compelled INEC to they went into overdrive to ensure that the 23rd run went well. So you got to a point where every day leading up to the 23rd, the INEC chairman himself was briefing the country every single day. So that created something, and in spite of that, the elections didn't go perfectly. We still had these logistics problems. Now imagine that after that run, INEC patted itself on the back. Oh, it was a massive logistic operation. We did fairly well. It went well. Even the international observers gave their reports that, okay, it was a generally peaceful, well-conducted election with hitches here and there. Now, what has happened, in my view, is they've rested on their oars, and they've not prepared as well as they did for that first one, for this run. And that is now what we're seeing manifest in this lateness here and there, because I think they've taken some things for granted. On our way into the studio this morning, what she's talking about, I saw firsthand at Obakran Rack Center, where the officials were supposed to gather and then fan out into their various polling units. The ad hoc staff refused to go. They were almost it was getting rowdy. And in fact, they threatened to break the camera of, the cameraman. Yes, one of the journalists there. That was a youth corp, and I had to tell them, come on, guys, you're youth corpers, shouldn't be doing this. Now, what was their grouse? They said they hadn't been paid. And they were demanding that if they were not paid, in fact, they locked the gate, said nobody is leaving this place. And I'm sure this is something that is probably common to all the other places and resulted in this lateness.
I listened to the INEC, the rec for Lagos State 2 weeks during the day before the elections, and he did say something, not this one, the presidential, and he talked about the issue of these core members' welfare never going to be an issue again. He emphasized that it was never going to happen again. First, it was the fact that they were sleeping out in the cold. They had nowhere to go. There were no plans for them. Now it is an issue of paying their money. And I remember emphatically when he was being interviewed by us, he said, the issue of their monies, it will be paid as at when you. In fact, there has been a signal from the chairman that all of these coppers be paid their monies. So again, we don't even know what to believe coming from INEC anymore.
I mean, INEC, even for the presidential election, if you remember, I remember one of the journalists at the briefing, one of the briefings asked the chairman, it was a lady that asked the chairman about the welfare of the ad hoc staff. They reminded him of the pictures that we saw on social media, people sleeping on the floor, you know, under trees and all of that. And his response was almost flippant and dismissive, that we have provided for their welfare. Somebody was responsible for that, and he believed that it was being handled. So I think that they probably have underestimated this issue, and they've not dealt with it appropriately, and, you know, the results are coming out.
What level of expectation now would you expect from the response of the resident electoral commissioner to this sort of allegation? Because I also listened to other reports from different broadcasts across the states of the Federation, and they all paint the picture, all is set and fine. And we now have the reality that these individuals, ad hoc staff, knowing how important and core their performance is to this election holding successfully, and we are being lied to once again. Who is in charge of all of these bottlenecks, and where do we begin to ask questions so that we have answers? Implementation here.
Responsibility and accountability. And those are the major problems. In an aircraft, the pilot has a role to play to fly the aircraft to destination. The air host and hostesses have their roles to play to ensure that the passengers enjoy the trip and they collaborate. You have the flight engineer and everything. And I like making reference to the private sector. Even though there are crises, not major crises, and there are issues that are dealt with immediately because you are thinking about your losses. But that appears not to be in the public sector. Many of these, we saw many of these youth corpers have complained. I told you one was complaining to me yesterday, and thank God he was complaining to me. Because he asked me a question that, sir, if we have suffered this, why should we not collect? And I said, you know what bribe will do to your future? You should be a patriotic Nigerian, and these are issues. 189 billion naira released for this project. How much did we spend in 2011? How much did you spend in 2015? So it's not a function of resources not being available. But it's the same question you ask, that why are we poor as one of the most blessed countries in the world in terms of our oil and gas reserve, the agricultural potentials and everything? Mismanagement.
Do you think?
And here we are. The question that those who have gone back home now, we hope they will come back. Not all of them.
Yeah.
Do you think
many
having postponed the previous, the February 16 election and the cost incurred might be some way, somehow, one of the causative elements to this late payment?
Let me ask a question. I respect what the government did in Ogun State during the rally of APC, where some overzealous Nigerians pelted the stage where the president was. The commissioner of police was removed. That is business. You see, so until we begin to make somebody pay for an error and take the credit for a job well done, we will continue to have this. And it's a sad narrative because many who intend to vote may not vote. I'm sure by the time it's 1:30 today now, it becomes difficult to get anybody to want to attend to anybody. And we collate all this and claim to have had a free, fair, and credible election. And if elections suffer this level of malaise, what about the administration of the country that the elected will be entrusted to manage? These are issues.
But Barrister, again, it seems that we the people are the problem. If we have anomalies during elections and we see that there's shortages and shortcomings here and there, and we keep quiet about it, we only make noise about it now when it's happening, and then we never follow through to see it to a logical conclusion, if I may. And you know what I mean. If people need to be removed from office, people need to be, taken to court so that they can serve sentences for lapses or whatever it is. Why do we not push for these things to happen? But we're very quick to scream blue murder. Why do we not see these things happening if we really are a democratic state, and if we really are tired of these complaints and lapses and excuses made here and there? What is keeping us, the Nigerian state, from doing this?
I will not in any sense blame the people.
Why?
Democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. The electorates under the Constitution are to come forward and vote for candidates they trust to go and represent them.
In other words, we're the ones who are giving them an opportunity to serve. They work for us.
And if they have failed us, it's their cause. When you hear the cry of a child in a home 7 houses away, there is something wrong in that home. Children are not expected to bring down the roof before they are fed. So if we are having this situation in our country, it's an anomaly. Things are put in place. For example, are we now saying, for instance, that the chairman of a high-profile bank should now go and be monitoring where is the gate man, where is the cleaner, where is the... there are structures. There are structures.
But talking about structure, sorry to cut you there, Barrister. Now, in all of the arguments that we've had prior to this engagement we're having today, one of the issues raised is that INEC does not understand in any sense what project management is all about. Therefore, if we did understand what project management is, we would have done an assessment within the shortest possible time. What happened between February 23rd? Plan in less than 2-3 days an action plan that would work within whatever we have anticipated for. So here again, we are having excuses for shortfall that shouldn't be.
Yeah, I said it at the time, the Nigerian government is the most fortunate in the world. The people should come together to demand accountability, even are divided making excuses. Let's come to this very election. If you know the level of logistics and protocols that have gone into securing interest in the posting of Inspector General of Police, exchanging police commissioners, you will realize that we know the right thing to do. But he mentioned the case of interest. It's a matter of interest. It's a matter of interest. Commissioner of Police changed from here to there. So let us drop the selfish interest in governance. And an element that should not even part of democracy has been introduced, which is the militarization. And we are warning politicians, this flood may erode the very essence of democracy and place the democratic players under the mercy of the military. Because may we not have a situation where the military will be the ones conducting elections in Nigeria. So we need to be careful and be sincere. And that takes us back to, why do we have these political structures? It is to improve the quality of life in the society. What is governance? Governance is the formulation and implementation of policies that will bring prosperity to the society. So if we focus on good governance, and the United Nations has simplified it, for countries of the world with the Sustainable Development Goals that will be evaluated by year 2030, saying zero hunger, zero poverty, gender, saying justice, decent work for people, clean water, clean sanitation, environment, collaboration between countries, things that will make human beings feel they are alive. But we appear not to be interested in this, but we are more interested in the organized control of resources for selfish and regional purposes.
All right, we have Mary Chinda, our correspondent, who is standing by. She's going to tell us where she is and what's going on there. Hello, Mary, can you hear us?
Hello.
Okay, Mary, what polling unit are you at? Where exactly in Lagos are you and what's happening there?
Hello.
Can you hear us, Mary?
Hello.
Hello, Mary.
Yes, David.
Now, which polling unit are you exactly?
Okay, so I am at the polling unit at Ikoyi, Latif Jakonde, at Ikoyi 2 in Etiosa local government. This is the polling unit of the governorship candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. They've actually been expecting him to arrive, but as of now, he just stepped in and he's taking a seat already, waiting to get accredited and then vote.
Mary, can you tell us exactly when INEC officials arrived at that polling unit?
Okay, arrival of INEC officials were quite punctual. They arrived at about 8 a.m. However, there was a technical glitch with the card readers, the smart card readers, and accreditation and voting didn't begin up until a little after 10 a.m. Voters here had actually not been happy, because they had to sit down. Some of them had to come in before 7 a.m., at about 6 a.m. as well, and they had to patiently wait for INEC to resolve issues with the smart card readers.
Is the conduct so far been in an orderly manner despite their displeasure registered?
Yes, David. Everything here is going in an orderly manner. The elderly ones, giving some preference. Persons, INEC had already said that persons with disabilities are also going to be giving some preference. So far, no one with a disability has showed up here, but everything is going on in an orderly manner. However, the challenge that the polling unit seems to be having or may have is that of low voter turnout. The voters who are expected here are about 505 voters, but as at this time, 10:45 a.m., there have been less than 100 voters. As a matter of fact, the media presence that we have at this polling unit seems to outweigh the number of actual voters, and that may be a pointer to how much voter apathy that we may be experiencing in this election.
Mary, can you tell us if there were voters who came and maybe probably have left maybe when there was when they had the technical hitch?
No. From the interviews that I've had with people and all through our stay here, voters who came, it was pretty much like they were expecting this to happen, so they took a seat and waited for INEC to get in here, arrive, and then even fix the issue with the smart card reader. At first, the INEC officials were unwilling to speak to the media, but feelings that we got was that they were working on fixing the smart card readers.
Okay. And then, Mary, what about the security operatives present there? Can you just brief us on who are present right now?
Well, as expected, Ikoyi is home for the bourgeois here, and it's expected that the security presence would be heavy. Security presence is actually heavy, but it's not so thick. It's not like what we had at BJC 2 weeks ago when the vice president was voting at his polling unit. It's not very heavy, but there are security operatives around here.
How many officials can you count? Talking about either the police, the NSCDC, or maybe the soldiers. How many can you count?
Could you say that again?
How many security officials are there? Can you count? How many policemen have you seen so far, or NSCDC officials, or maybe officers of the army?
No, so far there are no army personnel here.
Okay.
As I speak to you, I'm actually still scanning the area, and there are no military personnel here. I mean, the army, precisely. The policemen, just a handful of them. They're actually not up to 15 here. That's basically what it is right now as I speak to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mary, for speaking with us. We'll get back to you to get more updates from that polling unit.
Thank you, Marianne and David.
All right, so a little bit above 10, I guess, if it's not 15, in one polling unit. And there are some other polling units who have just one person. So again, like to borrow Mary's word, the bourgeois have more security than in areas where you would preempt that they need more security. So why do you think that is?
I mean, it's the tale of two countries. I mean, that's Nigeria for you. You've got two sets of rules, one applicable to the rich and the well-to-do, and the other for the rest of us. So if, you know, the administration of criminal justice tends to work very fast when it's some poor guy who's stolen a piece of meat than if it's the guy who's stolen billions of naira, you know. So, and that's just the way it is. The police tends to deal with those guys quickly as against the rich. And in this case, you've got polling units where there is a possibility of breakdown of law and order because of the peculiarities of those locations where you've got ethnic imbalances and all of that. It will be interesting to know how many police officers have been deployed, for instance, to Okota, as against, you know, a polling unit where a gubernatorial candidate is and you've got 10 police officers. INEC guidelines, the guideline actually provides for not more than 3 per polling unit, not more than 3 security unarmed security operatives per polling unit. So why do we have almost 15? Just because a gubernatorial candidate is going to be voting there.
All right.
You know.
Well, we hear that there are reports of some core members protesting in some local governments in Lagos, and the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, in the state has come out to debunk allegations that the commission was yet to pay the ad hoc staff during the presidential elections. Well, this, what you can see now is an amateur video. It's also silent. I wish we could get the voice of INEC officials, because this is obviously, this is more than a handful of people, all of them screaming at the top of their voice.
100.
Yeah, screaming for their monies to be given.
And that's coming from Kate.
I think that makes you happy, because where you said the problem is with the people, you can see the people now expressing themselves.
So we can hear them now. Yeah.
It's coming through. That's no less than 100.
They're about a little more, but there are a lot of people who would obviously at this time of the day, I mean, even the DJ with his music is in some form of shock that this is happening, because he came to be a happy man at that, or bring joy to the hearts of the people, but obviously.
I witnessed this firsthand, like I said earlier, in Ikeja, where they had locked the gates and they said nobody was leaving. They were protesting.
Wow.
You know, so I think this is something that is statewide. INEC needs to look into this.
But Barrister, why do we not take welfare of the people who work, who put in the hours for whatever it is? Let's not even talk about the core members. And these are ad hoc staff. They're not your staff. They're not going to get salary from you at the end of the day. It's not their duty to do this job. They're only serving the nation because this is part of their youth service or youth corps service or whatever it's called. So I'm just wondering, why do we not prioritize welfare in this part of the world?
Yeah, it's because of our mindset. It's a local mindset. Let's take it from the traditional level. In some parts of the country, you have those we call kabiosi, which means you don't question him. He's the head of the community. If there are 30 plots of land, he takes 26 and releases 4 to the people and still collects rent on the 4. So we bring that mentality to governance. So we think the more we have, the more successful we are. And which is a serious issue, you know, and these issues will still be denied, because why should you make people to work and you are not, and you have collected the money? We know how much has been released. So the same thing applies to the police. We've had cases where mobile policemen protested in Borno State about their allowances. It should be quickly denied. You see, so I think, and that is why we have a group who are manipulating this country, because they are so rich and they have the money to pump back, mobilize hoodlums during elections like this. You know, we're discussing somewhere and somebody was trying to bring in an ethnic sentiment that so much has been pumped to the north, and somebody said no, that you don't say so much has been pumped to the northern part of the country, that so much has been pumped into the private accounts and pockets of some northerners, because you don't see the impact. I did a study on the 10 poorest states in Nigeria. I think about 7 out of them are in the northern part of the country. So, and this plays out. And that is why, despite the recommendation of the International Labour Organization that people should earn living wage, we are still debating 30,000 naira as minimum wage in Nigeria.
For the lack of time now, quickly, Segun, weighing on this now, what level of discussion do you also expect? Because now we are expecting things to be done since we always wait to have a reaction first. We are expecting the reactions now. What do you think the DG NYSC should be, what level of talks do you expect him to be having with the INEC chairman? Because last 2 weeks, ahead of the February 23rd election, they had a chat over the welfare of the NYSC core members. Now again, there is another arising issue. What level of talks should be held again?
Well, I mean, I think beyond the talks, you know, because what you're saying sounds almost like
they had a conversation.
Yes, how to handle the welfare issue. For me, I think it's more critical now, because this is happening now in the middle of a process. So it's a crisis, and somebody in INEC needs to step in. It's obvious from the experiences, from what we've seen, the reports we've seen, from what I saw on the field, that it's a statewide thing. Do you blame the DG NYSC for not taking charge of this area? Because if you have a recruitment agency, you would see to it that those you are providing are well catered for. It's the responsibility of INEC to pay the daily allowances of this ad hoc staff.
And
it has nothing to do
to ensure that these
all NYSC can do is to deploy them, and they've done that. The payment must come from INEC, and obviously something has gone wrong in the line. Maybe if NYSC doesn't release their core members, they would understand that. Yeah, maybe, but that is now a conversation. That's what I was saying. That's a conversation for the next election. So right now we've got a crisis on our hands, and INEC, not NYSC, must step in and deal with this so it doesn't scuttle the rest of the election today in Lagos.
Well, we want to thank you, Segun Sopitan, for speaking with us, and Barrister, we want to thank you so much for speaking with us. It's been really interesting. I was hoping that we could go into some legalese on this one. But we want to thank you, gentlemen, for speaking with us. We have to go on a break. When we come back, we're still taking more from you. Don't forget, you can be part of the conversation. Join us on WhatsApp. Send in your videos, pictures. Tell us exactly what is happening at your polling unit. Have your INEC staff showed up early enough? Has voting or accreditation started in your polling unit? We want to know. And what's the security situation where you are like? Join us in the conversation on Twitter, WhatsApp, and on Facebook.
Don't forget to add necessary details, your name as well as your location point. We would definitely appreciate that. And a segment is coming where we'll be taking all of those feeds.
Stay with us.